Hey, it's Chris from Beer Bearings, and it's September, which means it's Oktoberfest time. If that confuses you, don't worry. I'm going to take care of that for you and talk about the celebration itself and the beers that you can expect to see both in Munich and in your own backyard this year. So let's get started, and Prost! So what is Oktoberfest anyway? And if it's Oktoberfest, why is it in September? The original Oktoberfest was the celebration of the wedding of Prince Ludwig of Bavaria and Princess Theresa. It was held in 1810 in October in Munich and in the fields outside Munich. They had a big celebration, certainly a private side, but also they invited the public in the form of a big festival. They had horse racing, free-flowing beer, and food, and they enjoyed themselves so much in 1810. They did it all over again in 1811, and they've been doing it ever since, unless there is something like a war or an epidemic, which unfortunately is the case this year. These days, about 6 million people annually, like my friends behind me here, descend on Munich to celebrate Oktoberfest. Obviously not happening this year, but it's also spawned celebrations all over the world, most of which are also off this year, like in Cincinnati, Ohio, where they have the biggest Oktoberfest outside of Munich, and right here in New Orleans as well, where the German-American community here at the Deutsches Haus puts on their own Oktoberfest every year. Again, not happening this year, but don't worry. Lots of American brewers, big and small, make Oktoberfest beers that you can grab, have a backyard cookout, and celebrate your German heritage or your wannabe German heritage safely with your friends. So enough history, let's talk about the beer, right? The first fest probably featured a Dunkel, which is a very dark German lager. It's bready, it's malty, it's delicious, but it's also pretty filling. And as time goes on, tastes change, and for something that's been going on that long, tastes have changed a few times. So next up is a Märzen, or a March beer. Why is it March beer? That's because there was actually a prohibition against brewing between April and September, because in the warmer months, bacteria and wild yeast could infect the beer and just essentially make it not go as well. So March beer was the thing at Oktoberfest, and then recently they've switched over to Fest beer, which is a much lighter bodied lager. So since about 1990, that's been the predominant style of beer at Oktoberfest. So let me show you what those look like. The first one I've got is the Sierra Nevada Oktoberfest, and this is a Märzen. This is the beer that you would have seen served from, sort of the middle of the 1800s, really up until about 1990, 1995 probably, or something like that. It's that darker color. It's a little more malty. This again is Sierra Nevada's version. Most American brewers actually brew a Märzen style and sell it as an Oktoberfest. This one is delicious every year, and that's what it looks like. It's a little bit darker, a little bit maltier, and it's going to have a little bit more bready notes. It might even be a little bit sweet. Lots of brewers are going to have this. There's one near you, I guarantee you, that actually brews one of these, and it'll be delicious for your backyard celebration. So next up is the Fest beer. So this is the beer that was switched over to in around 1990 and has been ever since. It's much lighter bodied, and I'll show you what that looks like. Here it goes. This is Weihenstephaner Fest beer. It is a much lighter bodied lager, as you can see, and therefore more poundable, in the words of the head brewer from Polliner, which is where this innovation came from. So it's a much lighter bodied lager, much easier to drink in quantities. And the reason it's easier to drink in quantities, and you want it to be that way, is this is the vessel that you drink from at Oktoberfest. Actually, you drink from a glass version of one of these. This is a stoneware 1 liter mug, so a little more than a quart, if you remember your metric system. And these are the size of mugs that you're going to get over there, and they essentially fill one right after the other. So you got to be on your game, and you got to be careful. You want to put your hand through the handle like that, because otherwise accidents can happen. So that's a little bit about the beer that is served at Oktoberfest these days. So whatever you decide to do, grab some beer, grab some Oktoberfest from your local brewer, grab some Sierra Nevada, grab whatever you want, get your friends together, put on your lederhosen and your dirndls if you have them, and go have fun in your backyard. But most importantly, enjoy yourself, and Prost!